Well, today we're with Bethany Kunz, who's a student at the Touch the World Gap Year program. And she has been in the program for just over a semester, just got back from Christmas break and starting into second semester. So we wanted to catch up a little bit with her and get a beat on her story. And then also just some of her experiences and what she's had so far, what God's done so far in this year and what's coming next. So Bethany, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks.
So tell us a little bit about your background, family, where you grew up, all of that fun stuff.
My dad, he works for himself, so like we can kind of do like whatever we need to do. So we just kind of move around a lot.
Awesome. So for me anyways, I grew up in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And right before my senior year in high school, we moved from Grand Rapids to Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, which kind of completely messed with my world, my game plan for life and all of that fun stuff, and, change relationships and whatnot. So I didn't move around maybe as much as you did, younger, but I feel that transition is a thing, right? A lot of military kids, friends that are military kids and missionary kids and things like that. So then how did you connect with Touch the World? How did you find it? And what was it that kind of brought you to Touch the World as your next step?
So actually it wasn't really Touch the World. It was the Shagleys. My parents went to church with the Shagleys and like a while back. They don't go there anymore, but they still got their newsletter. And my mom saw that they were doing like a gap year program and everything. And so that's kind of how she suggested it to me, and that's kind of how I got connected.
Awesome. So what was that conversation like? Were you thinking, you know what, I don't know that I want to hit the college campus yet? Or was it more the mom said, hey, check this out because you can hang out with Randy and Deb, and you're like, all right, we'll have a conversation and see how that goes?
It was actually, I was, I was doing my own thing. I had a plan and everything. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I was like, Mom, I don't want to do that. Like, forget about that. She's like, well, listen, at least consider it. I was like, fine. And so I prayed about it, and I felt like that's where God wanted me to go. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll do it. And so it did not start out like I actually wanted to do it, but now I'm glad I chose it.
Well, okay. So if you don't mind me asking, and you can tell me it's none of my business, but so what was the plan?
Oh, the plan, well, I was living in Virginia with some friends at that point, and so I was, like, kinda on my own. I had a job, and it paid very well, and I was like, "I'm chilling, I can keep this going," like, I was fine, and, like, I didn't know what I wanted to do in college, so I was like, "There's not a whole lot of point of me, like, going if I don't know what I wanna do yet," so, yeah.
Which is wisdom, because there's a lot of kids that are like, I'm supposed to go to college. So they hop onto campus and start working through classes and all of that. And then their, direction changes as they figure that out. And that's a very expensive, statistically, one of the most expensive things you can do in life is change direction while you're in college. So, waiting till you have a beat on things is wisdom. That's awesome. And it's interesting to me that you had that perspective, and also interesting to me, most students that end up in gap years, they start the conversation with their parents where they say, you know what, I'd like to do something different than the traditional path. I'd like to take a year. And mom and dad have to kind of warm up to the idea, because mom and dad have thought, okay, this is what we're doing over here. So it's interesting to me that your story is kind of flipped over from that narrative. So you decided to do Touch the World, do the GAP program. Started in late August, early September or so.
Yeah, late August.
Okay. So I'm interested in, obviously you made the decision to go. You moved from a good situation where you're making some money and you kind of have a game plan. As you transitioned from that kind of independence and kind of live in your dynamic to the gap year, what was it? What was that experience like, kind of coming in under the roof of a program and people that your parents know, but maybe you did or didn't have a lot of relationship with?
Yeah, it was very different. Like I was not expecting what I got. It was very interesting because I guess let's see. I didn't really know like the Shakey's very well, so I didn't really know how they were gonna go about doing it and everything. And so yeah, and then I it was very the relationships were like I think that's probably the biggest difference is like the relationship like aspect because in Virginia like people like we got along and it was fine but like they didn't really care like about like the relationships I guess but now it's like I actually have to like work hard and make sure that I'm like maintaining like a healthy relationship and so like I feel like that's one of the biggest things that I've like noticed the difference in is like I actually have to love people around me and like actually like try.
Okay, so for you, and I'm picking up a little bit of your personality. Just this is the first conversation you and I have had. I'm the sort of person that I'm kind of an introvert, and so when I'm in a situation where I know I need to engage or whatever, kind of gear myself up, we do that, and then I leave and rest, right? Because it takes a lot out of me. But I'm also very, very comfortable, like for instance, going to a movie theater and sitting and watching a movie by myself. I'm like, I'm cool. Whereas my wife is like, how in the world can you do that? Like, that doesn't make any sense. For you, though, then obviously that's a gear shift in your experience from Virginia. Did that feel initially like a positive or did it feel like a challenge for you?
It was definitely more of a challenge. I was not prepared. I was like it was definitely a challenge because it's just a lot different than how I'm used to operating. And so, yeah.
Okay, so then how is that dynamic adjusted for you, if at all, throughout the course of the first semester and now heading into the second semester?
Um, I would say that it's benefited me a lot because and I can see that and I'm glad that people expected me to maintain healthy relationships because then it shows me how to do it with like people like that aren't in this program like in the future. So like I guess it's shifted from like ugh I got to do this to like I'll do it because I see that it's necessary. So
Interesting. That's how I felt about the wilderness ministry. I grew up, my dad dragging me around the middle of the wilderness with high school kids, and I never wanted to be there. And I was always like, I'm not doing this. And then God kind of brought me back to it, and I learned like I don't like being cold, wet, or sleeping on the ground, like all terrible things. But the relationships are worth it. So you're like, oh, okay, this takes something from me, but man, it's worth doing. So talk to me a little bit about the gap year, how it's like what your experience is on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis, the things that you're doing, and kind of how you experience those.
okay. Well, it's a lot. Like I think one of the things I was thinking about recently, I was like cuz we have an intensive like dump of info coming up and so one of the things I learned was like when they say it's intensive, it's intensive. Like sometimes I'm like, yeah, it's probably not that bad. This is it's a lot. And so um yeah, but it's all worth it. Like it's all like really cool stuff, but like it's a lot and it can be a lot because it's not just like knowledge, but it's also like emotional everything. Like it's yeah, they care about the emotions and not just like the head knowledge. And so
Hmm.
it's
Okay, so let me zoom out a second. Talk to me a little bit about how was high school for you? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Somewhere in between, did you endure it? Like how did that work for you, and how were you as a student?
oh, high school. So technically speaking, I was homeschooled, but I went through like pretty much everything except for public school. Like I did maybe not okay, maybe not in high school, but I did a lot of stuff through all my schooling. So like I went um, I was a good I was fairly a good student. Like I did get A's, and yeah. If I'm being entirely honest,
Which would be
I
preferable.
I survived by being a teacher's pet. That was my I knew how to do that. So I could go there and I could get the A's and I could make the teachers happy. That's kind of how I went through high school.
That's funny. That's how I did college. So, which interestingly, and I'm not ashamed of that at all. There's a skill set in that, right? Like, in the skill set is, how do I learn what this person needs and is asking for, and how do I bring something to that space? And it may sound manipulative in one sense, but there's a life skill in that related to, and probably connects a lot to what you're doing even in the GAP program, where you're saying, okay, I'm not just thinking about how do I get a task done, or how do I process this content, but it's like, what's the purpose of it, and how does it connect, and how does it connect the community? So there's a good part of that. Now, and just like anything, there's two sides to a coin, but so don't be ashamed of that. That's actually a skill set. I think that's great. Okay, so you did high school by solving for what a teacher needs, and you got that done. I'm gathering that it wasn't like your favorite thing ever. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, no, yes, you're right. It was not my favorite thing.
But you got it done, and then you're, on your path and thinking, okay, what am I going to do with life and all of that stuff? Then you end up the gap. Crap. Okay, I wanted to tie that back together, because I think a lot of times, everybody has a different experience in junior high, high school, whatever, from an academic perspective, from a community perspective, and all of that. And a lot of times that informs their experience moving into the next stage of life, whether that's college or something else. But it's helpful for me to understand that, because then it helps me understand the shoes you're standing in when you step into a program that we're engaged with. So, and I know Randy and Deb, and I know the team there at Touch the World, but I hadn't had an opportunity to meet you yet. So this is kind of fun for me to see that side of things, because they all speak very highly of you, by the way, just so you know. They do. Rock star, stuff like, words like that. Anyways, so talking a little bit about that, talk to me about the focuses, like what you've learned so far, and maybe what's been easy for you, and then also what's been a challenge for you in the things that you're learning.
What's been easy? Okay. What's been easy is probably more of the practical life skills. Just because, I don't know, we're out in the country. I lived out in the country, and it crosses over a lot of the stuff that we do. So it's probably the easiest aspect. Also, because it doesn't involve emotional input to do practical life skills. So yeah, but what's been a challenge for me, I kind of said this, but just I was not a very emotional person. I don't know. It's not my forte. Not very good at that. So the fact that they're requiring us to process our emotions and go through all of it is just oh. But yeah, that was probably the most challenging thing.
Do you feel like you've made progress in that, or is it still one of those okay, when they make me, I'll do it, as opposed to I'll do it because I feel like I need to?
I do think I've made progress because we have done it so much, and now I realize, oh, it's necessary. So I realize that it can't just ignore those things. It benefits you to deal with them. So
Absolutely. Our little small group at church just went through a book, and I'm trying to remember the name of it now, but it's all about identifying and processing the emotions and that whole thing. And I'm like, same thing. I'm very much okay, give me what needs to be done. It's not that I'm unemotional, but give me what needs to be done, and let's do that. And if there's margin for the emotional side of things, then we'll kind of grab that box off the shelf and we'll look at it. But then you can obviously fill your life with no margin so that you never have to look at it. So That well, and two, like I think, from a gap year perspective, you look at the list of classes or whatever that you might enroll in. Processing emotions isn't one of the classes listed, but it does like it actually impacts all of those things, moving forward and next step. So that's great. All right. So if I remember correctly, this last semester was a lot of, like the way Andrea put it, is kind of the up, my relationship with God, the in, like looking at what's happening in my own heart. And then second semester is that you're heading into is a lot more of the out, like going out and doing some things. What are some of the things that you have ahead of you? Because I think you have a trip coming up in a week or two. Is that right?
Yeah. In around 2 weeks, we'll be leaving for Greece, and we're going to be helping out with the Second Evangelical Church of Athens there. And so we'll be doing like a lot of outreach with that church. I'm not entirely sure. We were going to do stuff with refugees, but then that kind of changed. So it's a little more of everywhere, I think. And then we have another trip coming up end of April, I think. It's a week long. It's in New York City, and we're going to be helping feed the homeless with City Relief. So that's the stuff I know about. And then we also have we try to do, I think, like one outreach locally per week kind of deal. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, so what do those local outreaches look like?
So far we've gone on one because it's been like cold and snowy and we can't go anywhere kind of deal. But the one that we did do, we went to a personal care home, and we did coffee, tea, and trivia with the people that live there. So, yeah.
Awesome. So, should I ask how you feel about those things? Get a little emotion into there. Just kidding. So for you, like kind of pivoting from the not away from, but adding to the up and the in, some of that out. What is it that you're looking forward to? What do you expect and anticipate in those different experiences?
Honestly, I'm trying not to expect too much because I don't know. When I expect things, then I get disappointed, and then it's like a whole thing. So, I'm trying to avoid that. But I think my biggest goal going into that is I just want them to see that like I have God's love, and I want them to see that I have it for them because of what He's given me. That's my goal.
Awesome. And from a team dynamic standpoint, I'm guessing that the other gap year students around you are different and different, complementary, whatever words you want to put on that. What do you see as a team walking into those environments? What do you expect as opposed to just you personally?
As a team, I've been kind of seeing that we can show them better like our love for them because we all cover different aspects. Like we have one girl, Iskra, she's like she loves community, like she loves just like inviting everybody to come join, and like I can see like how that would like benefit us. And like another girl, she's really good with like language, and like I can see how that like help like when we learn their language it'll be beneficial. Um and like yeah, and then there's another guy, he's good at geography and like knowing kind of their region and everything. Like I can like see how we would all like contribute like something to help others see that we love them and we like care about them and like we want to know more about them.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited because those are very different. I mean, obviously, Greece and New York City are two very different environments. I'm excited to see how each of those is a unique experience for you guys, but also how each of them brings a theme out. Because I think usually you see as your little community or body goes into these different things, you'll start seeing some forming and some themes of what God's doing and developing in you. So I'm excited how that kind of moves forward. So I don't want to take too much of your time because I know you've got, like you said, you got a big content dump coming, and I'm sure there's other things going on today. But before we wrap, talk to me a little bit about so far this year. I imagine you've gained some perspective on your own story and journey and next steps. What do you see at this point that maybe you didn't see when you walked in about where God's taking you and what the next steps are?
I guess taking the time to be like intentional and like developing yourself like so that you can do what God wants you to do, whatever that happens to be, like when the time comes, like, and so that you can be more effective and like not have so many potential like crises on the way there. Like, yeah.
Awesome. So from a story perspective, do you have a beat at all on who you think, whether vocationally? I mean, obviously, there's a lot of different things you can do vocationally and in life and whatnot that can invest the same dynamic. Have you grabbed at all a little bit of who God made you to be and how that works and what that might look like moving forward?
Okay. So we've done a lot with like leadership, right? And like I do tend to be, I guess, more of a natural leader. But like also to see where like I need to like work on like what areas of leadership like that I need to work on, and like how that like looks, I guess, later in my life because of what I'm like working on, I guess. So did that make sense?
That does actually. I'll tell you what I see just in this conversation. Is that okay?
Yeah.
You can tell me if I'm wrong. I would say number one, like as far as leadership goes, you definitely have leadership on your life. And it's the kind that looks like when stuff gets crazy, you don't buckle. You actually stand in place. And that's comforting for people. And people are willing to stand, like if you imagine the wind of the storm, they're willing to stand behind you because you're kind of a pillar there breaking the wind and that chaos coming at them, and you don't turn around and walk away. Like you have the ability to stand in that place. At the same time, that same thing that gives you the ability to stand in that place and kind of be unflappable on the outside. And I'll say on the outside on purpose because that's where the whole processing thing comes in. And I won't dig into that because I don't want to surmise too much, but whatever. But that same thing, as it relates to leadership, that gives people comfort also kind of freaks them out a little bit. And they're getting them to move up into that space with you and follow, as opposed to just stand behind you, is the skill set that I think the Lord will unlock for you to give you confidence to keep moving into the wind and also helping people move with you, as opposed to just stand behind you. I think I see that definitely. You got that look in your eyeballs, and just from the conversation I'm seeing. I think that's a lot of what's there, and whether that is you know I think of it kind of like the combat medic, like when somebody needs help and bullets are flying, like they're going to call, they yell medic. At the same time, they don't tend to want to follow the medic around and help stop the bleeding because the bullets are flying. So, but I see a lot of that in just this conversation, how you're wired. And I think the other thing that I'm impressed with, at least what I'm picking up, is you have a very significant care for your words. You're very, very careful to make sure that what you say is what you mean and communicates what you mean, and you're not flippant with your words at all, which is a rare thing, especially in your generation and at your age. So that's a pretty significant thing as well. That can, I think, create connection and trust, but it also doesn't necessarily connect real well with the people around you that are shoulder to shoulder, because they handle that differently. They have kind of a different culture in this space. So those are the two things in this conversation that stuck out. So you can tell me if I'm absolutely wrong or, in the ballpark.
I think you do. It makes a lot of sense. Like I can see. I see what you mean. Like, yeah. Every time I thought you were like, maybe not, it was like, oh, you brought it back around and it makes more sense now.
That's what my kids say too. You're talking in circles, Dad. Anyway, cool. Well, I appreciate the time. It's really good to get to know you a little bit, and I'm excited for what God has already done and where you're headed here through the rest of the year. But part of the thing that we understand from a university perspective and a partnership perspective is that we get to be a little part of the story that God's writing. I always say we created Anchor Christian University as a river, not a pool. It's not a place to come sit and hang out. It's part of that river that goes way beyond that. So, your life, your story, your trajectory. I'm just excited for what God has in store for you. And I appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Thanks, Bethany. Have a spectacular rest of the week and enjoy Greece, New York, etc.
Thanks.
Yeah, we'll catch up with you later.